Hello everyone, as you may know by now, 6v6 is back, so I had no better idea than to do a tier list. Now, there are some things to mention. The mode is just going to be for a month, it's just temporary, so I don't think I need to wait so long to make a tier list, because if not, it's just kind of redundant. Also, this is not based only on my experience, but like the ladder, the people who are on the leaderboard and looking at streams or whatever. I am at top 500 in 5v5. The 6v6 matchmaking is awful, and I don't think I'm going to be playing it that much in that state, but hey, I did play a lot to make this tier list, so yeah. There is also another thing, it's not role queue, it's max 2 tanks. That means you can actually go like 4 supports. 4 supports is not that optimal, but 3 supports might as well be. I'm going to talk later when I go to the S tier, but yeah. Tanks are really strong, that's why they're limited to 2. There's 2 characters in D tier, which is like the don't play tier. One is Orisa. Orisa is terrible. She's already pretty bad in 5v5. No really big explanation why, but she doesn't really provide that much as of now. She's like a decent counter pick sometimes. Like I would say in 5v5, maybe she's like C tier, kind of. She's playable. Here, no. She's, of course, she's pretty nerfed. Besides the global decrease in HP for more tanks, she receives headshot from 45, that is pretty big. I think 45 itself is like less reduction, and her kit is just much better at dealing with the 5v5 meta and like controlling one tank instead of 2. In theory, you know, with perks, she could be played in double shield. It's not good. Not only you're like waiting way too long, like Sigmaris is probably her best duo, I think. You're playing like not really, neither are really strong, like Sigma is also not that good, we're going to talk about it later, but as a whole, poking is not ideal, partially because of, like, again, I think triple support is really strong. Sustain as a whole is, people tend to play for sustain, so yeah, Orisa are not really good. Then on the C tier for tanks, we have Junker Queen and Doomfist. They're not ordered. I don't think there is enough time to be that precise, but I do think these two are below average. I would say, in my opinion, maybe it's like this. Doomfist is playable. If you are like a Doomfist main, he's still going to be decent, but he suffers from being too squishy. He only functions with Zarya, I would say, and I don't know who else. Like, he's very weird as a tank. He's more like a tanky DPS here. He can't really control space as much because he can't just like tank. He's very squishy. He's more like playing for PM, power punch, and one-shotting people, which, you know, it's doable, especially again, sustain is really strong, but there is not much going for him. Then for Jungle Queen, she's just too nerfed in this version. Shouty, it's a longer cooldown, her healing it's way lower, so she's just not as good. I'm pretty confident she might be okay as an off-tank to some, but I don't know who. Like, there might be a really good Junker Queen comp, but at the best, she's like here. Like, if she fits a really good comp, maybe she's here, but I haven't found it. Most people are not running Junker Queen comps, and she's just like very limited. You say like, she's not a good main tank. She just can't hold because of her nerf stuff. So she's an off tank, but as an off tank, she doesn't really provide that much. She has like the hook kind of and the movement speed buff. So yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Is Rein Jungle Queen might be decent, I guess, but I don't know. Like, it's very weird, especially because, for example, like if you compare it to the Hog in Overwatch 1, what was Hog's like good tank? It was Orisa, because she could set up hook. There really isn't anything like that here. Ramatra, kind of. Maybe like Ramatra Jungle Queen is decent, but I haven't seen it that much, and overall she's just not that amazing. I mean, again, all the tanks are really good. Jungle Queen is not terrible, she's just terrible compared to the other tanks. Well, terrible no, she's just below average. Now we have on the B tier, first we have Winston. Winston is, he has the same problems as in Overwatch 1. Like, he's very Fist of Famine. But he does deal a decent amount of damage compared to them, but he's quite squishy. Like, you misplay, you die, like, very quickly. And there are like, he's really good with like Zarya and the usual, you know, with D.Va, but there are better tanks for the things you want to do with Winston. unless you really need the verticality. I would say there's one tank that is even like it's still better at that. But like dive-ish comps that don't need verticality, Winston is just not worth going over the ones that are higher. Then here we have D.Va. Like D.Va is solid, but she's really bad against some of the best tanks. And the tools that make D.Va so annoying in 5v5 are really much worse here. Like her damage is really high still, but her matrix is much worse, meaning that she's not as needed to counter certain heroes. But she also explodes really fast. Like she doesn't take that well damage. Like that's the issue here. Like especially because triple support and such are a thing. Like if you play dive with these two, you're not going to kill and you're going to die. That's basically it. They're still playable. Like D.Va is really good with a few of the one in S tier in some maps where you need the verticality. For example, here, but D.Va offers the off tank space. That's actually quite good in some maps. But yeah, there's still some better off tanks, all things considered. Then we have Rein. Rein is okay, but he's, Rein. He's kind of outdated at this point, really limited, but he's like really strong up close, and his shield is really strong and shadow is really strong. But again, poke is not that needed, so a strong shield is not that necessary. It's still good. No, I'm not going to say that it's bad. It doesn't take damage as well as it does in 5v5. Like in 5v5, Ryan's shield, holds for a while, but with the extra damage, it's not as good. Of course, you have an off tank and whatnot, and that's why he's not terrible. Off tanks really enable Ryan. The D.Va enables Ryan. Zarya enables Ryan. Well, else? I would say I wouldn't say Hog really enables Ryan, but the thing about most tanks in that they added in 5.5, they're more considered main tanks, because naturally the way you play tanks in 5.5 is just as a main tank, right? You're just the tank. And off tanks overall feel really weird in 5v5, and now that we have a 6v6 mode, it's we actually have pretty limited options for off tanks. It's D.Va, it's Zarya, it's Hog, and maybe Jungle Queen, and maybe Orisa. But Orisa is terrible. I don't think Jungle Queen is really good. So yeah, off tanks overall pretty limited. There is a queen of the off tanks, as you may probably know. But yeah, Ryan still solid, completely playable. Also, perks are pretty important, but for the characters here, I already picked Orisa. For Jungle Queen, they don't really do much because they're much stronger when she has a strong self-healing. She doesn't, so pretty much we're pretty limited, all things considered. Doom, the Doom, it's Doom stuff. It doesn't really change that much. Heroes here don't change that much with perks, all things considered. Then we have Hog. Hog is actually really good. On the first 6v6 test, it was the non-trap Hog with no meter on the self-healing, and he was as exploitable as before. Now he's not. I think it's it has a shorter max duration or healing or whatever, and his damage is slower, I think. He's really good. He's actually really good as an off tank. It's not as toxic as he's in 5v5, where Hog metas are pretty awful to play against. Here he's just he's solid tank you need to take into consideration, but he's not super annoying, but he's quite tanky, which is an issue with most of the others. He's really good against some of the really good tanks, some, not all. And yeah, he's just solid. His ult, I think his ult has the transformation. No, that was in Overwatch 1 already, but it has a really strong knockback, which is really strong in many points. Honestly, his ult is quite good here. And the last in B is Sigma, where you see Sigma suffers from dive and rush comps being really good, but he's still Sigma. He's still pretty complete, has a bit of everything, but having a bit of everything also makes him not good at anything, not amazing at anything. That is pretty it's worse in 6v6 than in 5v5 as a concept, but he's still solid, playable. There isn't much to say. He's just Sigma. He is an off tank. I don't know which tanks he's good with, honestly. I'm trying to think. He's kind of okay with him. He was really good with Ball. With Ball, he's really good. I remember it was the one that people were considering. I remember at the start of when he released, that Ball was going to be his best pair. Then double shield and whatever. But right now, yeah, Sigma Ball is actually really good. They complement quite well in how they hold space, but Ball is better with other tank because the tank is just really good. I'm going to talk about it later. So yeah, Then we have the A tier, and speaking of the devil, it's Ball, and where is the other? Ball is really tanky. He has the rework from, you know, Overwatch 2, so he has really strong ally utility, which is actually important. Like, it makes people super tanky, and it's kind of like an AoE sustain meta. If it's kind of like Oats. And he just works really well with everything. He's like the best dive option, like dive option, and he's really strong at like just solo carrying and doing stuff. I do not know if Ball plus 3 DPS is better than like the standard comps with him. I will believe so, but he also, again, like, he has these perks with really high utility. He also has a steamroller, which is really good when, you know, there are two tanks. They actually like deals a lot of damage against tanks. But yeah, he's just really solid. Ramatra, it's like Sigma, where he's like really versatile, but he actually takes more like an upfront playstyle, you know, with Nemesis form and whatnot. His ultimate is also like much more consistent at like just staying up, because, you know, there's another tank that is usually at like close range. It's pretty hard to not use his ult correctly. So it's weird. Blocking as Nemesis form is much stronger, because the thing about blocking with Nemesis is you're just blocking. You're the tank that is just taking damage. When you have another tank, especially like a high damage dealing, you're essentially like a barrier. You're not going to die, because block is super strong. I think he is 65% damage reduction. I don't know. But you're essentially not going to die as long as you get some healing. The other tank is just applying constant pressure on, of course, the DPS and whatnot. But block is super strong here. Vortex is really strong as a setup tool with some dive tanks too. Like, he's really good. His kit is quite fun to play also in 45. Like, his poke, his normal form is not that like amazing. He's kind of just there, to be honest. His shield is okay. But I don't say like Nemesis is really good here in CV6. And he still has a very strong utility. You have the 3S tier. I think it's no surprise if you've been playing this. It's Hazard, it's where is Mauga? It's Mauga, and it's Zarya. It's pretty much like one of these dudes plus Zarya is just so easy to win. Hazard is just like super strong. Again, the fundamental of locking is so much stronger in CV6, and he has like a much more consistent one, kind of. Like, it's not reliant on a cooldown. It has a bar, but, you know, especially with the perk that makes it even stronger, you can just take damage. Like, he takes damage, he holds space really well, he synergizes well with almost any off-tank that has like some defensive property. Like, well, yeah, Hazard Sigma, for example, is actually quite decent. Hazard Zarya is insanely good. Hazard TV is okay. You can play him with Ramatra too. Ramatra is like, yeah, I would say it's the only tank that can be played as both like a main tank and an off-tank, kind of. But yeah, because he's like, he doesn't, he applies pressure in Nemesis form, but he also supports the main tank at applying pressure in the way that off-tanks do. Like with CC and like the some defensive property. Like, his barrier is better as like setting up the other tank if they don't have a shield. And again, Vortex is, especially with the perk, is like really strong at like a way like Hawk Hook would be, like, or Junker with Hook. Like, it's a zoning tool that's can set up other, especially like tanks. So yeah, Hazard is really strong. His ultimate is as good as in 5.5. Like, his kit overall, he's also a steer in 5.5, to be honest, I think, right now. Yeah, pretty confident he's also, and he's just as amazing as he is in 5.5. Then we have Maua. Maua is like also quite good in 5.5 right now, but the thing here is he has a Zarya, and having a Zarya is really fucking strong. The same way like a Susu is, but it can be stronger sometimes. It depends on the situation. But yeah, having like a moment where he's not taking damage and he's also cleansed means he just heals. His charge is much weaker in 5 and CV6, thank god, because it would be insane. It has a longer cooldown, I think it has worse steering, and I don't know if it does less damage, but he's still like, if you hit a crit slam plus the healing, you're like hitting for like half HP. That is crazy. Like in 5.5, you kind of do the same. Like, it's also 300 HP. I think he doesn't have like much more lifesteal or the like crit overhealth. I think they're the same values or like similar, but here they're much more important because you're like they are weaker tanks, but like proportionally he's stronger. It's weird to explain, but if you're playing against Maua and like he crit slam you, it's a bit harder too. But if he does, he's just he just heals for full. It's pretty crazy. And again, he's also really strong in 5-5 already. Here it's no different. And we have Zarya. Zarya's like the enabler. Thank God she's still not the 2 bubbles. The management. It's like one self bubble and one ally bubble. And they're like the weaker. She's like in Overwatch 1. And again, thank God. Imagine Mauga but with 2 bubbles. Yeah, no. Like that would be... Or like Ramatra. He's really good. She's really good with Ramatra. He's really good with Hazard. She's really good with Mauga. She's okay with balls. She's like... She can be played like anywhere. Almost anywhere. She enables so much. Grab is an amazing ultimate, especially in CP6 because people just like more grouped up. It's pretty easy to get like a 4 grab and whatever. And I wouldn't say she's like... She is better in CP6 than the current 5-5. I don't think she's bad in 5-5 right now. She's good. But she's not this good. Like, I know she's maybe in like low ranks, but here she's just... Ally bubble is insane. Her damage is really high. She's not that squishy, all things considered. Like, she doesn't die super fast. And she just, against like the big sustained metas, she just charges grab and wins, kind of. Like, it's like Goats. It's the same fundamentals as Goats. She's really good. Then we have DPS. And I only have one DPS in the D tier, and that is Hanzo. Hanzo is not good. Despite having a one-shot, first, there are 2 tanks, meaning there are 2 people who he cannot one-shot. That's pretty meaningful. Poke as a whole, again, quite weak. You could justify him in against triple support, kind of, but he's not good. Like, he's already pretty bad in 5-5 right now, especially because like his perks just suck. His perks are awful. Like, if you're not constantly hitting headshot, which is just not going to happen, his damage is nothing. Like, oh, you hit an arrow, yeah, it will full health, like full health, and the next time you shoot another, yeah, no, too late. He doesn't have the DPS he doesn't have the DPS nor the burst unless he's like constantly again hitting headshot, which it's just inconsistent. And there are 2 tanks, and the strong ones are pretty good against him. Hazard is pretty good against him in most maps. Mauga is pretty good against, unless there's really big verticality. Zarya is really good against him at like just farming energy. And the others just like they don't care about Hanzo. He's just there. He's not good. Then the C tier, we have a lot. First we got Cassie. Cassie is just pretty plain. Like right now I don't know what, like in current 5-5 he's like the tanky close range hitscan kind of. And that is somewhat valuable here because, you know, they're like pretty rush oriented comps, but he just doesn't do much. I haven't seen him do well almost in any game, and he's not picked that much. Even in like the leaderboard, he's just not there. If you're cracked at Pancree, Cassidy, whatever, he's probably still decent. You know, like he has always been. Like if you can suit up people, yeah, good luck. Like, well, yeah, in some range, whatever. You got the idea. But I don't think he's good. It's just, and again, like as a whole, DPS are just not that good. Right? In CP6, just better to go like more supports, unfortunately, which can be quite boring. Most people don't do it. Like to be entirely honest, with the fact that most people are not going to run triple support, some of these may be a bit better, like the DPS. But I gotta be honest. Then we have Echo. Echo is pretty hard to play here. She's really good in 5v5 like killing people that are isolated. It's much harder for people to be isolated in 2v6. She's pretty squishy. Like she just dies immediately. And the strong tanks are really good against her. Zarya is really good against Echo at just, again, farming energy. Mauga is the best tank at dealing with like flyer heroes and whatnot. Hazard is not like amazing, but you know, already like playing against Mauga Zarya, she's just not really enjoying like the meta. And she's also not good at dealing with the supports that are really, really good. Except maybe like 1 or 2. Then we have Junkrat. Again, poke is not that good. The assassin playstyle of Junkrat is also not good. Right now he can't one-shot. Neither he can in 5-5. Like, poking in 5-5 is actually a bit better. Cost sustain is lower and like whatnot. And his ultimate is pretty whatever. It's pretty easy to break it in most situations. He doesn't really provide anything. Yeah, he's in 5-5 right now. I think he's like okay. In 6 he just doesn't really provide anything. Then we have Widow. A similar thing with Hanzo is just, yeah, she has 25 more HP, but she has to do 2 tanks. And she's just not really, she's not easy to play in CV6. She's not like D tier because there are some maps where Widow is still really good and one-shotting is really good in some situations. Here is when, like, for example, Ryan is really good against Widow, because as Ryan, you can just shield your team and the other tank like annoys Widow or whatever. Like, there are many ways to play against Widow, but it's much easier to deal with in 6v6 right now. Then we have Sombra, which may surprise some, but she's just not good at... She's similar to like Echo. She's good at like taking isolated targets and sometimes annoying one tank. Taking both tanks is just not that good. It's pretty easy to negate virus. Like, if you like hack someone, it's like Bubble, Matrix. They're like, if you play Sombra in this mode, you're going to feel uncomfortable. EMP is really strong, as strong as it is in 5v5, but she's just not good. You could like try to play as, you know, like melt tanks, like hack a tank and just shoot, but most of the time that's just okay. Like, maybe she's B tier, but I haven't seen Sombra do well as a whole. And I tried her and she was just not it. Now we have the V tier. We have Bastion is quite good at dealing with tanks. Like, he, especially when they're a bit squishier. He's really good at taking the bad tanks, kind of. Like, he's really good against Doom. He's really good at Jungle Queen. He's really good in Orisa. He's really good against Ryan, Winston, and Hazard. They're the good one. And the good thing is, even if you're not going against one of those and you're like, you don't really see the value of like the tank melting, the explosion ones has enough burst damage to be good. Like, you can like you will two-shot people if you're good before they get healed. So he has like really strong moments that are quite decent, all things considered. He's also like decent in 45 right now. It's like a similar case. The self-healing, it's okay. Now it has a meter, but again, healing is not as important because you're going to be playing with more support overall. But if you're not, like, if you have like two healers and one is Zen, for example, the self-heal is really strong. It makes him really easy to play against stuff like Winston or Tracer. He just heals. Who else is in B? We have Ashe. Ashe is the best hit scan like poke. That might also apply to 5v5. I'm not entirely sure right now. She does have a DPS. I like the range DPS to like at least provide some value. And she's also not that bad against like dive or rush compared to the others, like Widow and Hanzo, and yeah, like she's much better against that, and she does well against like many strong supports. Like, even if sustain is really high, she's really good at like picking them. I'm going to like say who those are later, but yeah, Ashe is really solid. In the V tier, we also have Mei. Mei is really good at dealing with tanks, yes, but the wall is just not tanky enough in most situations. It just breaks, which like she's not as good at trapping one tank. If you do like successfully, they are way squishier and they're really easy to kill, but it's harder to do. But she's is very tanky and really hard to dive as a whole, and she provides really strong utility with her ult, and the slow in the secondary, like the perk, is a really strong tool as a whole. Poking is again not super strong, but when you apply a slow, it just, you know, slows down the game a lot, and it's really good, especially defending. Also in B, we have Soldier. Soldier is not good against triple support, but since you're not going to be playing against that every game, I wanted to put him there. Even like, he's still kind of playable. Pretty self-sufficient. He has very good mobility, especially with the runner perk. I don't know how it's called. And yeah, he's just Soldier. Like, he's actually quite underrated right now in 5v5. But in 6v6, he's just kind of mediocre. If I had to order it, he will be like almost in C tier, to be honest. But he has more options than Cassidy at dealing with the dive and rush overall. And then we have Symmetra. Sim is really good in some points. The thing is, again, if you're playing Sim, you're doing it in like some comps that were not that good. Like, is Symmetra Mauga good? Yes, like, it's a really good combo. Symmetra provides like the utility and yeah, the utility that Mauga needs. But since there is another tank, the other tank can provide that. And as a whole, it's like the utility, it's better to have a third support than Symmetra sometimes. Symmetra is still pretty decent, all things considered. Not super easy to dive, and it is easier to charge her beam when there are 2 tanks, so she's still decent. Then we have Torb. Torb is like, consider that he got nerfed, but he's still like quite good thanks to perks mostly. Turret is a bit worse in 6v6 when there is another character that can deal with it. It's just a bit worse overall. And his poke, again, poke is not that strong here right now, so it's a bit undervalued, but he's still really good against dive. Like, he's pretty hard to kill, and his ult is actually a bit better, kind of like, you know, because there are more people, the zone controlling ults are just better. Same thing with Mei. So yeah, he goes to B tier. And lastly we have Venture. Venture is ironically maybe like one of the best DPS in 5v5 right now. Super strong minor perk and like, sorry, the major perk, but they were already good. And the like assassin playstyle, unfortunately, is like, it's much better in 5v5 than in 6v6, meaning that naturally they are harder to play. They are still decent, pretty tanky. It's they are hard to dive or rush. Like, you're not going to dive or rush a Venture, and they can work in like San Mauga comps or whatever, but they are hard to play. There's no denying that, especially since again triple support and like the higher sustain because they buffs most supports healing. As a whole, it's just, you know, it's harder to play. So that makes for the DPS in the B tier, I think. Now we have the ones in the A tier, and we have Pharah. Despite saying that poke is not a good, this, like, you know, this version of Pharah is more of kind of an assassin, and since poke is kind of worse and there's like more sustain overall, she's really good at, she's pretty hard to kill, all things considered. Like, if you have a, you don't need a pocket Mercy, you need like either some support that is helping you, and she's really good with tanks that can help her. Like Zarya with Pharah, really strong. D.Va with Pharah, really strong. Like the off tanks, you know, the main tank is doing main tank things, but the off tank can help Pharah. That is really strong. And it works quite well. Not like, again, not super amazing, but still really good. Again, DPS as a whole are not super, in my opinion, they're a bit weaker than supports and tanks here, but yeah. Then we have Reaper. I haven't seen that much Reaper, but I have played him, and I think he's really good. Because the thing about Reaper that made him quite bad in most of 5v5 is that his kit was meant to kill tanks, and he just couldn't because they were just like the super tanks. And then they made him like better at killing squishes and whatnot. So now he's really good at taking squishes, and he can also take tanks. And with like perks and whatnot, he has like really strong sustain. He has, of course, the mobility. Again, the assassin playstyle is kind of harder to pull off in 6v6, but he doesn't need it to play like an assassin the way Venture needs. So like, even if you're playing at just shooting a tank, it's actually much better here than in 5v5, especially because stuff like D.Va Matrix is weaker. Blocks are weaker, which, you know, are pretty bad for Reaper. So you're not forced to play with a barrier, but they are the only like strong counter against Reaper in a way. And it's just, again, really hard for dive tanks to play against or rush. He's really good in Hazard, he's really good in Mauga, he's really good against Winston, etc. Like, he's really good. If you play DPS, Reaper is probably one of the best options, and not many are playing him, which is surprising. We have Tracer. Swamp. There isn't much to it. The same way she kind of played in the Codes era or whatever, like, she wasn't that good, but when sustain is broken, Tracer is good because Pulse Swamp. There are many counters to Pulse Swamp, yes, that's why she's not S or whatever. She needs to play around those cooldowns, but she's still Tracer. She's really hard to kill as whole, and she's just always going to be decent, as long as she's not like, you know, numbers wise she's terrible, which she's not right now. She's quite decent. But yeah, I mean, she's not like super, like, she's on the lower end in the A tier, I would say, but she's really good. And then we have the last DPS. No, we have the last two. Yeah. The last in the A tier is Genji. Dragon Blade is much better when you have an off tank that can help you, like, in an easier context, because, you know, again, main tank is doing main tank things, the off tank can support the tanks, the DPS far more consistently, which with Blade is really, really good. He's also, you know, yeah, it's just Blade. It's mostly Blade. Blade is actually good, despite some people saying that Blade is just bad. It's just not true, to be honest, especially with like the lifesteal. He's Yeah, he's just solid. Again, dive comps are okay, pretty good. Despite me saying that like sustain is really good, dive comps are decent against most like triple support comps. They can actually kill because we're going to talk about the specifics, but there aren't that many tanky supports, like super tanky. Some of the stronger ones are pretty easy to dive and kill fast, or maybe not like dive, but they are they're worse against burst damage. So Genji and Pharah and whatnot are good at picking them. And yeah, Genji is just really solid. He's also like really he's good in 5-5 right now. He got like most of his perks buffed, which is nice. It was the bad thing about Genji, like her perks were bad, but they're much better now. And the only DPS in the S tier is fucking Sojourn. Sojourn not only is amazing in 5v5 right now, but in 6v6, unless the enemy is running like double shield, you will almost always have an option to charge your in railgun, which means a lot of railguns, and a lot of railguns is a lot of kills, and again burst damage. And despite being like, like you can consider her as a poke character in a way, like the SMG and whatnot, she converts a poke into burst damage. So no, she's really good against everything here, and she can one-shot some heroes with her ult, especially with a damage boost. Like if there is one DPS to pocket here, the reason you will play Mercy here is just Sojourn, and she's really good. She's a tier in 5-5, also a tier here. Not much else to say. And now we have supports. The worst support is Mercy. Nothing. I see because of Sojourn. Or Pharah, kind of. Like Pharah can play with our supports, but she's also good with Mercy. Burst damage is really good, making damage boost decent at like that extra damage, but she's really bad. She can't sustain anything, but she still enables some DPS, so she's not awful. Then on the B tier we have Liari. Liari is not as good as in 5-5 in my opinion. As a whole, is actually harder to keep a track on your pylon. Like you need to move around more, kind of, so it can be hard to keep your pylon alive. And her healing is like, since it's like somewhat limited, she actually like can't sustain tanks like a lot of times. And in the prior test, her pylon had a lower cooldown, if I remember correctly. Here it's not, so she's like also playing with the same pylon in 5v5 when it should be stronger in 6v6. But again, she's like super strong in 5v5 right now, like super underrated and really strong. She's just okay here, kind of. There are just better options. Then we have Kiriko. Kiriko is still okay, but you do not need Susu when Zarya exists. That's kind of the problem with Kiriko. Her healing is just not high enough. She does have like the poke damage, and since you don't have a limit of supports, being like self-sufficient is not as important, because you can have like a Bri as a third support that can cover for that weakness that I'm going to talk later with another support here. But yeah, Kiriko is not like amazing. Again, still playable completely. It's not amazing. Life Hero is actually okay here. In like 5-5 he's pretty bad, or maybe he's like okay-ish. Low B, high C, kind of. Here's like a solid B. Kills a fuck ton of damage against tanks. He's really good at taking tanks. Pull is a bit better when you're not taking away the only tank. Like you're pulling the only tank. Pulling one of the tanks can be quite good. His situation is still not amazing. Pedal is kind of whatever, but he's really hard to kill. He's super tanky because of like the minor perk and his self-healing or whatever. His healing is buffed, so he's not amazing at sustaining, but he can still sustain. His ult is really good in 6v6 because of how fights work, except like you're playing as Hawk. Hawk just melts it. He's actually really good. He's really good in Zarya. He's one of the few supports that counter Zarya. So yeah, he's actually quite decent. Like solid. He's just solid. Then have Bap. Bap is not amazing despite being in like, he naturally should be better in 6v6 because AoE and whatnot. But since poke as a whole is not that amazing, he kind of falls short compared to the others. That's kind of it. There isn't much to it. Then in the AT we have Lucio. Lucio is really strong in rush comps. You can play him as, you know, the 3 support comp with, I don't know, like you can play Lucio, Brig, and Moira. That's completely good here. Yeah, like he's really strong, but he's not as strong as the one in the S tier, I think. He's not as mandatory. You don't need a Lucio in every situation. Also because Juno exists, who is also in the A tier. The fact that there is another movement speed option, it just kind of naturally makes Lucio not as mandatory. In some games Lucio is better, in some games Juno is better. The only problem with Juno is she's really easy to kill. That's the thing, like Genji or Tracer. Juno can die. The Lucio Juno Brig is actually super strong in coordinated play. If you're coordinated, you're just like Lucio Juno is already good. Now add a Brig that can keep Juno alive. That is really, really strong. That's like super strong. But there is another support that's more worth the investment, I would say, right now. And then in the A tier we have Ana. Anti is still an option, but because Zarya exists, like Anti is good against this too, yes. And you can play around the ally bubble, yes. But if Zarya isn't dumb, you're not going to be nading that much. She still has like really good sustain, 93 good. She's really like she's S tier in 5 right now. So is she worse since week 6? Yes, but she's not bad. It's definitely not bad. Not much else to it. Sleep does lose a bit of value and whatnot, but because there isn't one tank, but still really, really strong. And then yeah, last in the A tier is Moira. In 5-5 she's pretty unremarkable, but here is, and like nade is not going to be as strong because of the things that tanks can do, like, you know, off tanks being able to help the main tank deal with nade is really strong. Meaning the main weakness of Moira, that is anti-heal, is not as good. She's super good at sustaining, like she can play as the solo like healing character, like you can play the other two to, you know, yeah, I kind of these two are in S tier. Sorry that I kind of spoiled it. Brig and Sen are such a strong core right now that it's not even funny. You play Brig and Sen plus Moira or plus Juno or plus Ana too can work. And it just works. The thing about Sen is this is a Sen that doesn't have a cooldown on Discord, but I'm pretty sure he has like the damage of 5v5, and he has like the boop, the snap kick or whatever it's called, and duality, the perk of that converts like the damage into healing, is really good when you don't have a cooldown on Discord and you can just apply it on the tank and actually sustain. Like even if you need sustain, Sen can sustain, not, you know, as well as Moira, Ana or whatever, but he still can sustain, and this core is just super good here. In the leaderboard there is a good amount of like Zenyatas in like the top 500. Again, Brig is really strong in 5v5 right now. She's insanely strong at enabling Zenyatta because she's just really good at supporting him. And different from 5v5 where, you know, playing Zen Brig has some weaknesses. Suddenly you add a Moira, you add a Juno, you add an Ana. There are no weaknesses. Like in 5v5 you will play Juno Brig because those two go quite well. Because Juno provides the sustain that Brig, like Brig has some sustain, but it's not as good. But you know, Zen Brig plus, like the triple support is just so good right now, it's not even funny. Like this is almost the best comp. You like the thing is, this is pretty interchangeable. You can play with Moira, you can play with Juno, you can even play like the goats. But these two are like, if you want to win, play like, if you can play like Zen Brig plus another support, that is just too good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like the video, like and subscribe for more content like this. See you next time.